Hey girl, hey. Welcome to Speak Life with Lex. Thank you so much for stopping in. I'm excited to hit this topic. And I'm going to be talking about metamorphosis. Now, I don't know if you all know what that is, but metamorphosis is the process of a caterpillar turned into a butterfly. So, I live in West Virginia where we're basically in the sticks and which is new for me because I grew up in Rhode Island, which is the smallest state, but there's a lot of city, and so that was my scene. We didn't really have too much bugs unless you were looking for it, but here in West Virginia, there's bugs everywhere. And so we were at this park hiking, and I looked down at the table, and there's this ugly caterpillar. It's like fuzzy, hairy, ugly brown looking thing that was just sitting there crawling towards me, and I screamed and I was like, heck no, get that thing away from me. It was just disgusting. I mean, I'm like that with any bug, but that one was just ugly. And so when we see a butterfly, you're thinking like, wow, that's so beautiful. Like earlier today I was outside with my boys and we saw a butterfly, and all of us are like, ooh, butterfly. How pretty, how beautiful. And my memory went back to that ugly caterpillar, and I'm like, wow, Lord, that's so crazy that this beautiful butterfly that glistens in the sun, that catches our attention every single time we see it fly by, comes from that ugly, hairy, slow, brown looking caterpillar thing. And that's the same with our story. Each and every one of us has a story that we're always growing through. We're always transforming from something to another thing. And we all have a story, whether it's on the other side of the spectrum where it's like this major thing of when people hear it, you're like, oh my goodness, you should have been dead. Or there's other people that are like, oh, my story's not that big of a deal, but it is because you overcame without having to be down and out and on death's row, you know? And so whatever side of the story or whatever side of the spectrum that your story is in, we all have something to tell. And we all have a metamorphosis stage that we're currently in, whether we're at the caterpillar stage of being ugly and slow and not really knowing that on the other side, God has this redemption story of becoming this beautiful story of this beautiful butterfly for all the world to see, for you to shine light to. And so I want to encourage you with that we all have a metamorphosis stage. We all have a transformation, and we can choose to yield to the process, to start from that caterpillar, to go into the cocoon where we can grow and be nurtured and then break out into this beautiful butterfly. So it's funny because in the Bible, it talks about when we come to Christ, we're a new creation in him. And I just laugh because I remember before, like I've pretty much been saved my whole life, but I went through a stage of backsliding and doing whatever I wanted. I was rebellious. I just did whatever my heart desired. And it got to the point to where my mom kicked me out because I was corrupting my siblings and corrupting the house. And I could not wait when I almost like pushed it so far. I wanted to be kicked out so that I could just do whatever I wanted. And so the day that she's like, get out, I'm like, all right, like, bye, I'm leaving, deuces. And I got to house hop. And at first it was so fun. Like I got to house hop with my friends. I got to party if I wanted to till 2 a.m. I got to drink all night and get drunk and be around people that I wanted to be around to get that attention. I wanted to be with gangbangers, so I would go party with them. Like it was just like this freedom that I had, and it tasted good for a little bit. But after about 3 months of that, it was hard going from house to house and not having stability, and having people there just to party, but not there when you needed them. It turned into a thing to where I'm like, okay, I don't think I can keep doing this. And there were some nights I didn't have a place to stay. Some of my friends, their mom was like, no, your friend can't just sit on the couch. They can't just live on my couch. So no, she can't come over today. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I ended up finding a friend that was in the same mess as me. And so we just house hopped together Or sometimes we were homeless on the streets. We had nowhere to stay. So we just would walk all night until it turned day, and then we would sleep on a park bench. Like one time, the only person that we had to stay at their house was a friend's aunt. And she was sitting there sniffing all night. We just heard her sniffing cocaine. Like that. I'm like, oh my goodness, this can't be my life right now. Like I'm sitting here trying to sleep. It's like this lumpy small bed. At that time, there was another friend that joined us. There was like 3 or 4 of us laying. I'm long. We're laying on the side of the bed that's short. And I hear the aunt just sniffing cocaine all night. And I'm like, this cannot be real life. Like, how did I even get here? And so through that, my heart just became harder and harder because I'm like, ain't nobody care for me. Nobody got me like I got me. My friend, at some point, we ended up fist fighting. Like, I was so angry and bitter that I couldn't wait to confront somebody to get the anger out. So at school, I would fight. At friends' houses, I would fight. On the street, I would fight. Like fighting became my thing. I became this thug. I was like a wannabe gangster. So I hanged around the gangbangers so that I contemplated on being a part of those things. And I said all that to say is, when you look at me now, people will look at me and say, you're so sweet. You're so kind. You're so gentle. You're soft spoken. And I literally laugh. And they're like, why are you laughing? I'm like, because the life that I came out of, this hardcore girl that was selling drugs, that was trying to get by, that was surviving, that was having to be scrappy to live because of the choices that I made, obviously. To hear someone say that I'm this beautiful, soft, gentle, kind person, it just like, it was like a mind-boggling thing to where how God can take something that's so ugly and make something so beautiful. Like he took me from that mess. When I was in that mess, I felt like crap. Like I felt so disgusting. I was taken advantage of multiple times. And so I got to the place where I just felt like this wounded animal. Like I literally felt like this animal that was just left. And I almost got to the place where I'm like, I'm just waiting to die. Like I'm only 19, 20, but at some point, this lifestyle that I'm living, all the people around me, all these gangbangers, they were dying. They were either getting shot or they were shooting somebody else. And then eventually they would get found out and get shot. And I'm like, I'm just waiting to die because I'm just this rebellious person that doesn't want to change, is living in this lifestyle. I don't know how to get out now. And so I'm just gonna die young, I guess. And in that place, when God, he basically came to me and I heard his voice and he was like, I hit rock bottom. He's like, there's more. I didn't create you for this. I didn't create you to just be in this mess and stay there. And so when I yielded to the process, it didn't happen overnight. I still was really ghetto. I had a lot of attitude. Like I was in church with people, but I still had this attitude and I didn't think I would ever change. Like it just was something that would arise in me, and it was just this ugly person. But slow by slow, as I would yield to the process, when something would come to the surface that was from my past, I would deal with it head on. And then the next thing would come, and then I would choose to deal with it or stuff it down. Sometimes I would stuff it down because it was too much to deal with. But slow by slow, as I yielded to the process that God was bringing me through, I got into that cocoon where I wanted to grow, where I wanted to get correction, where I wanted to have people pour into my life so that I can grow, where I got to the place where I didn't know it all. Because, you know, in your early 20s or teens, late teens, you feel like you know it all. You're like, I know. Don't tell me. I know. And I didn't know all of it. But once I got to that place where I'm like, I don't know it all. I don't know life and I don't want to stay here. I want to grow, is the minute that I started to see change take place in my life. And I believe that that's the process of the cocoon, going into the cocoon, having people pour into you, having the Lord shed light on those things that are dead in your life, that are laying dormant, and things that you need to face, things that you just left. When you start that process and when you trust in God in that process and trust in the leaders and the people that's placed in your life, then in that you're growing, you're being nurtured. The ugliness that you were a part of, or the ugliness of our sin nature, the ugliness of that old nature, that animalistic nature, starts to change and metamorphose into who God is wanting you to be, this beauty for ashes. this beautiful butterfly so that you're able to show and tell the story that God is wanting you to share to those around you. So that when people see you, they see this light. They see this person that's full of love, full of life, full of joy. And when you begin to open up your mouth and tell your story, people are like, there's no way that that was you. And you're like, yes, that was me. And I don't identify with that person anymore. That's not me anymore. When I talk about my past, I can say all of the things that took place freely because I'm healed from it. The Lord took me through that journey of healing, and now I'm healed and I could talk about it without getting emotional, without it triggering things. And also, when I share that story of that person, it's almost like I'm talking about another person that's not myself, because it wasn't. That was an old nature. That was an old person. Now I walk in the nature of Christ. I have the nature of God. My thoughts are his thoughts. My ways, his ways are better than my ways. And that person is not Alexis anymore. And that's the same for you. Whether you're walking through that story now, I want to encourage you to yield to the process that God has for you. Yield to that transformation that he's wanting to do in your life so that you have that story to tell to others, that of how he metamorphed you into this beautiful butterfly for others to see and say, hey, where you came from, that very thing that I'm in, that caterpillar stage, I'll be able to look like that one day too. And now that person has hope because of your story of redemption, of how God brought you through the ugly stage into this beautiful butterfly. So you don't have to resemble that old person anymore. And here's another thing. We don't ever arrive. There's never a place that we get to where we say, okay, I'm done growing. I don't need anyone to teach me anymore. I'm to the place where I want to be. No. In life, throughout life, if you ever get to that place where you become unteachable, that's the day that you stop growing. Because there's always something that we can learn from those around us, whether it's young and old. Like there's things that I've learned from my own children, and they're younger, and you can hear, if you have like pride come in the way, you're like, who are you to tell me because I'm older than you? And that has nothing to do with it. At any age, at any stage of someone's life, there's always something that we can learn. The very things that we go through, our own stories, when we are in that, there's something that we can learn from that. And so I know for myself, I try to always put myself in a learning stage to be teachable, because at some point in my life, I was that, like I said, in the early 20s, where I was like, I know it all, so you don't have to tell me. And it was so ugly. Like that pride was so ugly. But now I'm like, there is no place to arrive. And I love to place myself around older people that are a lot older. Like I have friends that are in their 50s, 60s, because I just love to hear the wisdom that they have. And if I don't have to, they always say that if I can share something to you so that you don't have to do what I did and you can save yourself years, then it's worth it. And when I hear that, I'm like, yes, tell me more. Tell me how you overcame. Tell me how, as a mom, you were able to bring your kids through and raise them in the way that God wanted them to raise them. Show me how, when your kid veered off, what you did to help veer them back. Show me the do's and don'ts, because with the don'ts, I'm able to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it this other way. So there's always something that we can learn when we're at work, when we're at school, when we're at home. I know as a stay-at-home mom, like I said, my kids, they teach me stuff all the time. They'll be doing something just out of what they know to do as a child. They're just playing, and I'll see it and I'm like, oh my goodness, Lord, that's how you see me. And I'm like, I learned something new every day. That's my saying every day. I learned something new today. I didn't know that. And so I want to encourage you with that even when you do get to the place of becoming a butterfly, you're never done transforming. You're never done being teachable and growing, because in the Bible, it says that we go from glory to glory to glory. So there's always another level. There's always another place that we can grow, not only in our personal lives, but in our life with Christ. We can always go deeper and deeper in him. We can always go deeper in our relationships. We can the more intimate we become with the Lord, the more deeper he brings us. And there's depth. There's more depth. And then you could choose to stay surface and be in the shallow, just like an ocean, or you can choose to go deeper and deeper and deeper in the ocean. We have a story to tell, and it's important. And I have an episode, I think it's episode 5 or something like that, or 6, on where I talk about the power of your voice and the power of your story. And then the next episode leads into a story that one of my girls, Christina, shared. And it's powerful, her story, and it's already like a ripple effect. When people hear her story, it unlocks something in them. And so in the future, I'm going to do more stories, more interviews of people's metamorphosis story of how God took them from this caterpillar, this ugly thing, this mess, into this beautiful butterfly and turned it into their message. And I can't wait to hear more of your stories. And if there's more topics and more things that you ladies want to hear about or talk about or discuss, or even that you want others to discuss with me, like in an interview, I want you to let me know, because this is really a safe place to be able to talk about everything and anything that nobody wants to talk about, because we should talk about it. The more we talk about it, the more we shed light on things that we wonder about, the more the freedom takes place, because it's not hidden anymore. And so I'm excited for what's to come with our stories, with your story. And I hope that this encouraged you, that whatever stage you're in your metamorphosis, that God redeems, God restores, and your transformation story is something that's beautiful, that's going to be beautiful for you to break out into this beautiful butterfly, this beauty for the world to see on all that God has done in and through your life. So remember that you don't resemble with who you once was. Because a butterfly, when you see the beautiful butterfly, it's no longer a caterpillar, that ugly caterpillar. So that butterfly doesn't even resemble to that. And it's the same with our story and with our personal lives. You don't resemble with that old nature once you walk through that and yield to the process that God has for you. And remember, you can't stay a caterpillar forever. You can't stay a baby, a child, this immature person forever. You have to, you don't have to, but if you want to get to the place of the potential that God is wanting you to be, then you have to be willing to be teachable and grow and yield to the transformation process that God has for you, so you can flourish and bring beauty to others that are around. Are you yielding to the process of metamorphosis, or are you making up excuses, coming up with excuses always on how it's somebody else, and you're blaming others around you, but you're never taking responsibility for where you're at? We can't stay the same, sis. We have work to do for the kingdom. Like, the time is of the essence. We don't have time to stay a baby, to stay immature, and to stay at the place of being on milk forever. We have to grow in Christ, because I don't know about you, but I want to be where God has called me to be. I want to reach the full potential that he has for me. And so I'll do whatever it takes. Like, I told the Lord, I'm all in. So show me what I need to do. Purge anything that in me that's not of you. Even though it hurts, and even though the process could be uncomfortable, I'm ready to grow, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes. And I hope that you feel the same way. And I hope that through this message, you can see that in the process of metamorphosis, it stings, it's uncomfortable, but on the other end, there's hope and there's beauty and there's life. So let's share our story and help transform those around us by the beauty of your story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this encouraged you. Remember to speak life over your day, speak life over your children, your atmosphere, your workplace, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.